My friend, right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are standing at the edge of a major offensive decision that could quietly reshape how this team attacks defenses in 2026, and it starts at one position fans don't always talk about enough: tight end. Inside the building, there is real uncertainty, and it's not speculation pulled out of thin air. Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, and Kylen Granson are all set to hit the open market. That means, as things stand today, the only tight end under contract for Philadelphia is Cameron Latu. Let that sink in for a second. An offense built around timing, trust, and controlling the middle of the field could suddenly be left without its most reliable safety valve. Goedert has been one of Jalen Hurts' steady outlets for years. Not always flashy, but always important. Third downs, red zone spacing, play action leaks, protection responsibilities, Goedert has quietly handled all of it. But if he decides to pursue opportunities elsewhere in free agency, the Eagles are not in a position to simply replace him internally. There is no obvious heir ready to step in and absorb that workload. And that's exactly why the Eagles are now being connected to a very interesting name on the market: Cleveland Browns tight end David Njoku. CBS Sports' Jared Dubin directly pointed to Philadelphia as a logical landing spot if Goedert walks. His reasoning is simple but powerful. If the Eagles lose Goedert, they suddenly have a real need in the middle of the field, and Njoku is a player who can immediately fill that space. This isn't just about catching passes. It's about forcing linebackers and safeties to hesitate, about opening throwing lanes for Hurts, and about keeping defenses honest when play action is involved. Njoku himself recently made things official on social media, announcing that he will not return to Cleveland in 2026. After 9 seasons with the Browns, he thanked the organization and the city and made it clear he's heading into free agency. At 29 years old, Njoku becomes one of the most experienced pass-catching tight ends available. And experience matters when you're stepping into an offense with playoff expectations and a quarterback who thrives on rhythm and trust. When you look at Njoku's production, the case becomes even clearer. In 2023, his last fully healthy season, he caught 81 passes for 882 yards and 6 touchdowns, which earned him a Pro Bowl selection. That wasn't empty production. That was real, chain-moving impact. In 2024, even while missing time, he still posted 505 yards and 5 touchdowns in just 11 games. Then, in 2025, his numbers dipped to 293 yards over 12 games, but that came with injuries and inconsistent quarterback play in Cleveland. The drop wasn't about talent disappearing. It was about availability and situation. Financially, this isn't some unrealistic fantasy either. Njoku has already earned $69 million in his career. SpotRack projects his next deal around $10 million per year, roughly a 2-year, $19.9 million contract. The Eagles are projected to have around $20 million in cap space, and that number can grow with standard roster moves before free agency opens. If Goedert leaves, Howie Roseman isn't just looking for depth. He's looking for a plug-and-play starter who doesn't force the offense to change its identity. Njoku fits that profile. Athletically, Njoku brings size, speed, and the ability to stretch the seam. He can work between the numbers, threaten linebackers vertically, and still contribute as a run blocker. That matters even more with the offensive direction Philadelphia is expected to take. With Sean Mannion projected to install a Shanahan-McVay-style system, the Eagles will lean heavily on wide zone concepts and play action to manipulate defenders. Those systems depend on tight ends who can sell run, leak into space, and punish defenses that overcommit. What makes Njoku even more interesting in that context is his background. He already has experience in Kevin Stefanski's offense, which is rooted in the Shanahan-Kubiak tree. That means the terminology, concepts, and responsibilities won't feel foreign. In a system where timing is everything, familiarity reduces risk. It allows a player to contribute faster instead of spending half a season just learning how things work. The bigger picture here is that this isn't just about replacing a name on the depth chart. If Goedert leaves, the Eagles are forced to reshape the tight end room entirely. And instead of going cheap, young, or experimental, Njoku represents stability. He represents production that defenses must respect. He represents a middle-of-the-field presence that keeps A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, and Jalen Hurts operating with space instead of congestion. Right now, everything hinges on what happens with Dallas Goedert in free agency. If he stays, the conversation shifts. If he walks, the Eagles cannot afford to stand still. Njoku becomes more than a rumor. He becomes a real soul.
So now I want to hear from you. If Dallas Goedert leaves, do you believe David Njoku is the right move for the Eagles, or would you rather see Philadelphia attack the tight end position in a completely different way? Because once you really dig into this situation, you realize the Eagles aren't just choosing a player, they're choosing a direction for the offense. If Goedert walks and the front office decides to stay conservative, you risk shrinking the middle of the field. Defenses already try to take away A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith on the outside. Without a serious threat at tight end, linebackers sit flatter, safeties hesitate less, and suddenly Jalen Hurts is throwing into tighter windows. That's how explosive plays quietly disappear. That's why the Njoku idea keeps gaining traction. He doesn't just replace catches, he replaces stress on a defense. When Njoku lines up, coordinators have to account for him. He can line up in line, in the slot, motion across the formation, sell the run, and then break open behind second-level defenders. In a play-action-heavy system, that's gold. The Eagles want to make defenses wrong no matter what they choose. Crash the run? Njoku slips behind you. Sit in coverage? The run game eats space underneath. Another part fans shouldn't ignore is reliability for Hurts. Quarterbacks love tight ends who present a big frame over the middle. On third and medium, in the red zone, on broken plays, those are moments where tight ends become security blankets. Goedert has been that guy. If he leaves, Hurts still needs someone he can trust when the pocket gets muddy. Njoku's size and experience give him that same potential role immediately, instead of forcing Hurts to wait on development from younger options. And look at the roster reality again. With Goedert, Calcaterra, and grandson all hitting free agency, the Eagles aren't just filling one hole. They're rebuilding an entire room. Cameron Latu alone can't carry that responsibility. That's why a veteran presence matters. Njoku doesn't just help on Sundays, he stabilizes the position group during the week, in preparation, in film sessions, and in situational football where mistakes cost games. What makes this fascinating is that it's very Howie Roseman-like. If a starter leaves, the Eagles don't panic, but they also don't gamble blindly. They look for proven production at the right price. Njoku's projected deal fits the financial window. His experience fits the scheme. His skill set fits what Philadelphia wants to do offensively in 2026. So this offseason storyline at tight end is much bigger than it looks on the surface. It's about whether the Eagles protect the middle of the field, whether Hurts keeps a reliable weapon, and whether the offense stays aggressive instead of shrinking when defenses adjust. If Goedert leaves and nothing major replaces him, the ripple effect will be felt every single week. And one more layer to this that fans really need to think about is how the tight end position connects everything else in the offense. It's easy to talk about wide receivers and quarterbacks, but the tight end is often the piece that makes the system actually function. If the Eagles want to stay balanced, unpredictable, and efficient, they can't afford to treat this spot like an afterthought. With a Shanahan-McVay-influenced structure, spacing is everything. The run game forces defenders downhill, and the passing game punishes them when they overreact. The tight end is usually the player attacking the space that linebackers vacate. Without a legitimate threat there, defenses don't feel stress. They sit longer, they disguise better, they recover faster, and suddenly Hurts is forced to hold the ball, extend plays, and take hits instead of delivering on time. That's where Njoku's profile becomes even more valuable. He isn't just a check-down option. He's someone who can threaten vertically, create mismatches against safeties, and still stay on the field for run looks. Defenses can't sub against him easily. If they go small, he can body them. If they go big, he can run by them. That flexibility is exactly what modern offenses crave. Another thing fans overlook is red zone efficiency. The Eagles' offense is dangerous, but inside the 20 everything tightens. Windows shrink. Timing becomes faster. Having a tight end who can shield defenders and win contested catches changes how coordinators call plays. Goedert has done that for years. If he leaves, that production has to come from somewhere. Njoku has already shown he can be a red zone factor with size, leaping ability, and awareness in tight spaces. There's also the mental side of free agency. If Goedert walks, it sends a signal that the Eagles are ready to reset parts of the offense. Bringing in someone like Njoku signals the opposite, that they're still in win-now mode. It tells the locker room that the front office isn't letting important pieces quietly fade without replacement. That matters in a building with expectations, not excuses. At the same time, nothing is automatic. Njoku being connected to Philadelphia doesn't mean a deal is done. It means the Eagles are evaluating scenarios. It means Howie Roseman is preparing for the possibility that Goedert tests the market and chooses a new home. And when that moment comes, the Eagles don't want to scramble. they want to strike. So when you zoom out, this whole conversation isn't really about Njoku versus Goddard. It's about identity. It's about whether the Eagles keep attacking the middle of the field, keep giving Hurts answers against pressure, and keep the offense layered instead of predictable. The tight end decision quietly affects the run game, the pass game, third downs, red zone football, and even protection. If Goddard stays, great, continuity wins. But if he leaves, the Eagles cannot afford to downgrade the position. They either replace impact with impact, or they accept that the offense becomes easier to defend. That's why the Njoku connection is more than noise. It's a glimpse into how Philadelphia might protect its offensive structure heading into 2026. And if you keep following the logic all the way through, you start to see how one decision at tight end can quietly reshape the entire personality of the Eagles' offense. This team is built around efficiency first, explosion second. They want to stay ahead of the chains, force defenses into uncomfortable looks, and make every defender hesitate for just a split second. That hesitation is where big plays are born. A strong tight end presence is one of the easiest ways to manufacture that hesitation. Without it, everything gets harder. Defensive coordinators feel safer rotating coverage toward A.J. Brown. They feel safer bracketing DeVonta Smith. They feel safer sending pressure because the quick middle outlet disappears. Jalen Hurts then has to extend more plays with his legs instead of his arm, and over a long season, that adds wear and tear. Goddard has helped prevent that. If he's gone, someone has to absorb that responsibility immediately, not theoretically, not in the future, but right away. That's where Njoku's experience becomes such a big part of the conversation. 9 seasons in the league teaches you how to survive in hostile environments, how to adjust routes on the fly, how to read leverage the same way the quarterback does. That chemistry doesn't show up in box scores, but it shows up in drives that stay alive. It shows up when a play breaks down and the tight end doesn't panic. He finds space. Another element fans should think about is game planning. Every week, the Eagles face defenses built differently. Some teams play heavy zone, others live in man coverage. Against man, tight ends are mismatched weapons. Linebackers struggle to mirror them. Safeties give up size. Against zone, tight ends sit in soft spots and turn 5-yard throws into first downs. Njoku gives coordinators flexibility. They don't have to redesign the offense week to week. They can keep their core concepts and adjust within them. There's also the run-game connection. Even in pass-heavy discussions, the Eagles still want balance. Wide zone schemes depend on edge discipline, angles, and tight ends who can at least threaten defenders as blockers. Njoku isn't just a receiver detached from the formation. He can stay in, sell run, and force defenses to respect both possibilities. That keeps the Eagles from becoming one-dimensional, especially late in games when protecting leads matters. And don't ignore the psychological impact on opposing defenses. When a team knows the Eagles can hurt them inside, outside, and vertically, they play slower. They communicate more. They hesitate. If the tight end room becomes thin, defenses get bolder. They blitz more. They squat on routes. They dare the Eagles to